I didn't really know Pastor David Preus much before this interview. We'd run into each other a few times, had a few conversations over cigars or over a drink at a event here or there, but never really just had a chance to one-on-one talk without interruption or distraction. David is a very energetic guy, and he will follow a tangent like you wouldn't believe, which leads to it gets a little hard to pin him down sometimes. But it's compelling, and I think you'll see why. I do hope you enjoy this rather wide-ranging conversation in which we talk about mission work in Latin America, the plight of the churches in Latin America, and the differences, both in struggle and in value that they have with the ones that we have up here on the state side of things, all the way down to things like getting things done. How do you manage your email inbox? And that most marvelous book of books, Go, Dog, Go. I do hope you enjoy this interview with Pastor David Preus. So it's the morning after a few too many cigars. I had at least 2 last night. Maybe I had 3. And one of the ones I had was free. Actually, they're both free. They're both gifts. And it was given to me at a little powwow put on by the Centro de Misericordia. I'm not going to say it so bad. Misericordia y Seminario Concordia el Reformador, which is a seminary plus in the Dominican Republic. And it's an outreach of sorts by the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, or at least funded in part by, and an attempt to create an international Spanish-speaking Latin America seminary. And at that event, I ran into an acquaintance of mine. I'm probably closer to some of his brothers, Andrew and Paul, who I served right next to. But David Preus is his name. And I think the first time I met you was at Jeff Reese's house on the patio, right? And we've kind of overlapped each other in our seminary lives. I believe we're just about the same age. Mm-hmm. You a 40-year-old right now?
Almost 40.
Almost 40, yeah. So just about the same age. I haven't had a ton of time to get to know each other, but I do know you as a good thinker, good mind. And now you are serving as professor of history and dogmatics at, can you say it with all the Spanish flair?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a long name. Centro de Misericordia y Seminario Concordia el Reformador.
And you've been down there now for 2 years.
About 2.5 years, yeah almost.
And working with a couple other guys that are from here. Joel Fritchie is also an acquaintance of mine. But what I want to talk to you today about, a little bit is just seminary education. I'm curious about you in Spanish, because I don't know that was like your first love, right? Yeah. And then I'm really curious about the tactics, the management and or governance tactics. I don't mean that in the worst sense of the term, but how does one create an international organization, which is effectively what you guys are doing, right? And does theology come to bear on that? If not, what does? That kind of thing. But let's just start with, Spanish, man. What made you want to go learn Spanish?
I'm always up for an adventure. I've had a little bit of a wanderlust since I was a little kid. I was an exchange student in Germany when I was in high school. And
I'm going to interrupt you right away. Does your whole family do that? I know your Peter did that.
I was the first one, yeah.
How many of you have done that?
I really don't know.
Okay.
There are 12 of us.
It's like you guys figured out you could get a free little education out of that,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an international education, and it's an exchange program. It costs a little bit of money, but it's not like going on a grand tour or anything or traveling Europe. It's an educational experience, and it was great. It changed my life, and I learned German. I was young, so I learned German pretty well. It's much easier when nobody speaks English around you, and you're in high school because you're with friends, and your conversation is more kind of from heart to heart kind of stuff. And so I learned German pretty well. And since then, I spent another year there and buffed up on my German. So that's really my second language. And of course, excuse me, going to seminary and everything, all the other languages that were required for that, including Latin. Spanish, I thought really what it was I've really always wanted to be a missionary. I've always had a heart for the nations. And so more than just curiosity, it's kind of that epiphany spirit. I just I love the thought of the darkened, deluded souls being enlightened by the preaching of the gospel. It excites me so much. And to see that, to see people come around to embrace the faith, nothing gives me greater joy. And so that's really what pushed me there. The opportunity came up. Dan McMiller, Pastor Dan McMiller, who's the director of the Office of International Mission. Back then, he was the director of Luther Academy. And I met him at a conference. He said, "What do you think?" And yeah, the rest is history. And the Spanish was more a perk, but I like languages, so I really took it seriously.
Yeah, but so it wasn't like you had this inkling for Latin America that you've been wanting to do. You more were just interested in doing something somewhere, and this is the opportunity that was there.
Right.
So it's a crash course in speaking Spanish and move the whole family south of the border significantly. And I know there was some delay a little bit because of a health issue at one point.
Yeah, my wife's our seventh baby. We're expecting our eighth right now.
Congratulations!
Thank you. Our seventh baby was Jenny was pregnant with Andreas, and because of the Zika virus, which is kind of hyped up here. I mean, I'm sure it was a big deal, but I don't think there was a single case of microcephaly. It's called, which is what the Zika virus led to apparently, but. We were going to name Andreas Zico after Zico.
That's great.
Wouldn't have been in good taste, but
but that all turned out fine, and then you were finally allowed to go down there.
And we were allowed to go down there, so we were delayed a little bit.
I wanted to share in response to your description of the revealing of the light to the nations. One of my frustrations increasingly, and this is, I have these itches, and they're vague. And so I'm always wrestling to try to figure out, even how to describe what I'm frustrated by or what I'm theologically wrestling with. And one of the things, along with good order, on the other side is, what on earth is wrong with the church body that can only be German for 300 years? Yeah. What on earth, right? And it isn't like there isn't any history of trying, but somehow at best we transport our polity somewhere, and then they fight, among themselves over the money we maybe give them or something like that. And the idea of seeing Christians who confess the small catechism, who are not like me, is something I desire.
Absolutely.
And so one of the things you guys said last night, and probably the way Americans look at it, we would go down to the Dominican Republic and go to the seminary and be like, oh, they're all the same. But you've actually got multiple different
we're international.
There. Yeah, right. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, we're located in Dominican Republic, and that's kind of a long story. But the reason we're in the Dominican Republic, as far as I can tell, is because Pastor Ted Cray, who was one of, I think, 2 missionaries in the entire Latin American Caribbean region. Region. So we're talking a very large area geographically with only 2 LCMS missionaries because all the other missionaries were pulled back.
Right.
Well, President Harrison elected Pastor Ted Cray as regional director, and Ted has sort of built this the region from the Dominican Republic as his home base, and really stacked the missionary ranks there, including starting a seminary, which was always his long-term plan, and now we've finally gotten this thing off the ground. And it was always intended to be an international seminary. We don't have we have a few Dominican students, but very few. Dominican is a very new mission. Ted didn't get there until maybe 9 or 10 years ago. So most of our students are coming from either established church bodies or at least much older missions. And we have students from Mexico, Guatemala, Peru, Chile, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Spain, and did I miss one? Well, Brazil? If I did, you'll forgive me. No, not Brazil. We don't serve Brazil. Brazil's Portuguese, right?
Yeah, okay.
Or really Argentina. We have Argentinian professors, but
did you say Chile?
I did say Chile.
Okay, Chile. That is so curious to me. I love culture in general, right? So and it's not xenophobia; it's the opposite of that. What would that be? Xenophilia, love of the different, right?
Yeah, right.
I find it fascinating, and it always inspires my imagination. And I grew up a large part in San Diego, so I was very close to Tijuana Mexican culture, which it's just a taste of it. But there's certainly the Latino influence there. But then the distinction between Mexico and Argentina, that's massive. Right? Yeah, and we are so color based in our understanding of ethnicity even as we try to not be racist, it's still kind of how we see it. We look at their skin color; they all must be the same. Mm-hmm. But can you just, because I don't know, other than their soccer teams hate each other. Tell me about a Lutheran from Mexico and a Lutheran from Argentina. Not just their culture as Mexican Argentina, but what is their Lutheran experience like?
Wow, that is a huge question. It's very different because each church body has its own unique history. Mexico has had a relationship with the United States with the Missionary Seminary for a long time, and this is kind of an LCMS mission in its inception. But unfortunately, they were, I don't know, I guess I would say abandoned in many ways. We didn't do much work among them. Pastors kind of nurtured relationships with individual pastors in the LCMS, but it hasn't been until recently that we've really launched a concerted effort to work in Mexico. And it's really exciting because they haven't had an ordination in 15 years. But now we're looking at six people from their pastors from their church body that are connected with our seminary in one way or another. 2 of them are full-time students who are going to, by God's grace, be ordained in the next couple of years. So we're looking at huge changes in Mexico.
Now, I mean, how many Lutheran congregations are in Mexico?
Oh, I
can guess.
Even venture to guess. I would say ballpark 12 to 15, maybe.
Okay. And are they all located close to each other, or are they far from?
No, they're pretty far away. I know there are a few in Mexico City. Of course, Mexico City is a very affluent area, and there's, of course, that's what the population is. Many people. I believe there are. I know of 3 congregations there, and then we have a congregation in Mexicali, in an area near Houston, south of Houston. And in Chihuahua.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
No, not Chihuahua. Guadalajara. It's another,
Yeah. The size of Mexico is something I think most people underestimate. We think of it as being like this little place down there is just massive.
Huge, massive, and also very varied. I mean, you have dry area, you have humid area, you have beach areas, you have Caribbean, you have the Yucatan Peninsula, which is basically it's the same as the Belize and Guatemala. It shares that whole area, the Mayan,
which is almost rainforest like.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And what's interesting too is you have 2 famous empires. You have the Aztec Empire, which was around Mexico City, which is considerably south of here, and then you have a whole different empire, the Mayan Empire, which is south of there. And so really that area that many people don't think of much, you have 2 ancient civilizations and very different cultures to this day.
Yeah. Well, people think of it in terms of I'm going to go and drink a margarita and like pay not to be. I'll go see some of the stuff, but stay in my little enclave.
Of course.
Right? Which is, I'm not against vacations.
Right.
But that's not what mission work is or needs to be.
Not at all.
So this is interesting then a little bit for me. So you said it was 6 guys that you're working with out of Mexico. How are these individuals in these various church bodies down there finding the seminary right now? How is that connection being created?
Great question. Really, we are do I want to say a feeder? Yeah, we're sort of a feeder seminary from the Argentinian seminary. Okay. And the Argentinians, the Lutheran Church in Argentina was a district of the LCMS until, I'm not sure when they became their own independent church body, but they are. Of course, their history is closely joined to ours, as is the church in Brazil. But we're talking about Argentina and their seminary. They used to be the seminary for all of Latin America. Of course, they're Spanish-speaking. But recently, they have discontinued their scholarships to Latin American countries, students outside of Argentina. And so what we did is we picked up from there.
Why'd they do that? Do you know? If you can,
I'm not sure. It could have. It was probably. It probably had something to do with financial considerations, because it does cost a lot of money. Yeah. We depend on folks, and that's something that I should probably add. We depend on folks for generous donors for scholarships to these students, and so we've kind of taken on the scholarship portion, international scholarship portion of that seminary, and most of my students have been. They already have most of their pastoral formation behind them through Argentina. They took a year off, all of them, and did a practicum, which is basically kind of like a vicarage. And then after that, we took them into our seminary. So, and this has all been very rapid and recent. And and of course, with the help of, we're in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the help of the Concordia Theological Seminary here in Fort Wayne, we established a curriculum in administration, and we're only about a year and a half old.
Okay, so the administration bug's the one I'm going to want to chase eventually.
Absolutely.
Here. But I want to step back. Oh, now I lost it. Well, first off, you talked about money, and so I want to make sure we say this. You're a professor at the seminary, but you are funded as a missionary through the LCMS. I don't know what the terminology is. Network-supported missionary process.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
It's something like that. There might be either one or more words than that. What is it? I don't know.
But you when you were going to go, you had to visit a bunch of congregations and rally enough support to continue to keep you doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And without going necessarily into details, it's been my experience that the hardest thing to raise money for is sending a pastor.
Yes.
If I want someone to buy used bifocals to hand out on the streets of Mexico, people give money to that.
Oh, absolutely.
But keeping a pastor alive, well, yeah, here's a buck, right? And so, what's your experience been with that in terms of having to be a hand-to-mouth missionary?
There is a demoralizing side to it, no question, and it continues. I don't think anybody who's trained to be a pastor, I mean, you think of why you decided to be a pastor. I think everybody can honestly say because
it's for the money.
Because you wanted to go ask people for money.
Yeah.
Well, you wanted to be a graphic designer. Well, unless you were that beforehand, but I have to do so much stuff, like marketing kind of stuff, that it's just not my forte. So no, naturally, that part remains a little bit uncomfortable. But at the same time, you do get to know a lot of people. You establish a network. You get a really, kind of a more aerial view, or at least a broader view of the layout of the synod, and you meet a lot of good brothers. You establish relationships with congregations. These people know you. They know you face to face. They're very excited, genuinely excited to see you. They're praying for you. They send cards. It is encouraging. There is that side to it. Now, I'm not sure exactly what was your question again? I'm sorry.
Well, so the question was just about how hard it is compared to, I was comparing it to, and just really trying to call out for the listeners' sake, you're more likely to give money to something that's mercy than to something that's faith building.
And that's a great point. And the reason is because folks don't support their own churches. Yeah. They don't go to church regularly. And so why would they support a church far away? Why would they? So I think that's our biggest problem. People do not support word and sacrament ministry. Yeah. This isn't about missions. It's about, of course it's about missions, but it's primarily about supporting the proclamation of the gospel and the administration of the sacraments in where they are. I mean, it's not something that moves me, right? If I'm your average person, I was on an airplane coming in, and they had a video showing pictures of Nicaraguans living in really dire circumstances, and eliciting the pity of the people, and that's all great and everything, but these are perfect strangers. This is a Delta flight or something, and then they go and they take this kind of corporate-looking plastic bag, and it's kind of like their offering plate, and they go up and down the plane, and people are throwing 20s and 50s into this bag. I'm like, wow. Yeah. Well, that's so. How about that? Well, you're not going to elicit that in people who are running away from the font. Yeah. They're not going to invest in the font if they're running away from it themselves.
Well, and the pastor doesn't really, or even the seminarian or missionary who's going to be sent, doesn't look like they're in dire straits.
No, not at all.
Yeah, at least, I mean, maybe what we should do usually is, just take some video footage of your where you live while you're at the seminary, right? And your apartment, and I don't know. My kids weren't rolling around in dirt on the ground, but I mean, it was
Jonathan, you could help me out with that. I think you could. You'd be really good at that. I've been meaning to put my cell phone. And I tested it once, but I never fully did it. Put my cell phone on the dashboard. In my car and just drive. I think just driving from my house to the village where I work. Yeah. It's about a 20-minute drive. Yeah. I do 2 clips, 2 different songs, because there's a city scene, a country scene. I think people would see, I mean, No, I'm not.
Don't
going to
underestimate the power of mixed media. So you put some music with some video, and it doesn't matter what you say. People's emotions, their core gets stirred, and you got
Absolutely.
them.
And they'd see where I am too. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, you should do that. I think
right.
you should do that. But you also want to keep your focus on, again, now you're teaching classes. You've created a curriculum. Oh, this was the other question that I forgot earlier. Because you mentioned that the guys you're getting have already had their pastoral formation done, and now you're teaching them. And I think for most American listeners, they're going to be like, wait, isn't that what seminary is? So can you just distinguish the difference there? What do you mean their pastoral formation is done? And then what are you doing now that they're already formed?
Yeah, that's kind of a new word. I mean, growing up, I didn't use the word formation. I mean, formación is the Spanish word, so it kind of so it's that's what we call it. It just means they took their seminary classes, most of their seminary classes, they fulfilled most of their credits, and we kind of have carried over, and we've designed our curriculum to help them finish based on finish the classes that they have not done. And so we have this, we projected the classes that we would expect all of our students to take now and in the future, and then we kind of worked into that the classes that they took at Argentina. So we're basically, they're transferring their credits over to our seminary. And yeah, they have had most of their seminary training there, and they, well, no, I shouldn't even say most. They've had half of it. So we're completing the second half of it. Right. And their vicarage.
Right. So it's not that something is just straight up missing from what the seminary there would have given them. It's that it was incomplete. Are you expecting to have a continued transfer-like process from there? No.
Nope.
So
we're done. These are the last ones. In fact, all of these folks that I mentioned are going out on vicarage. I'm the vicarage coordinator too, so
lucky you.
I know that falls to me. That's quite a job.
I bet it is. That gets to the management again. But keep going.
Yeah, but so we'll be sending them out to their own countries, and then after normally vicarage, we designed it to be third year, but for them it'll be fourth year. Everybody's an exception so far, and so then they'll be done. But all of the other students, and we have 2 students so far who did not go to Argentina, not including our Dominican students, but 2 students currently that are, no, that's not true. 3 students currently in our seminary who never went to Argentina, and so they're just kind of we're it, and that's what we're going to be from here on out. Yeah, I mean,
and kind of hoping then that these other guys, once they graduate and go back to churches and are planting or serving, that they're also looking for young men who are going to be pastors, right?
That's exactly right.
You got to throw them back out to the wind for a couple of years and hope that comes through. Well, okay, so let's. You mentioned the vicarage supervisor stuff, and I remember, I think, the first time I learned about the vicarage supervisor at St. Louis. I won't mention his name, but he had this office. And it's like he taught some homiletics classes, but pretty much he just did the vicarage supervisor thing for the most part. He didn't teach a lot of other classes. I kind of thought, well, that's a cush job. And I probably didn't realize until I was out for years, wow, you're managing 200 placements amongst all these random congregations, and then trying to attempt to offer ground support to these guys as well when relationships. That's got to be insane. Just finding the congregations who are willing to let some guy they don't know show up for a year and preach to them, right? And the pastor who's willing to deal with this young buck who, at best, is going to be my analogy for a new grad out of the seminary is a puppy dog who pees truth, right? And that's great. He's cute and all, but then he's just spreading truth everywhere. And sometimes it's not that the truth is bad, but maybe you shouldn't have said it that way at the
He shouldn't be peeing it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, finding congregations willing to do that. And now you're doing this across ethnicities, not across language, right? Because it is just Spanish.
No, although there was one possibility in Brazil, but we won't talk about that.
Did you get this whole thing just dropped in your lap with cold? There's nothing there and you got to just start making phone calls?
Nothing is entirely cold. There's always a history. There's always, there are always people in place that you can contact.
Okay.
So if they can't do it, then maybe they know somebody. For instance, Chile. We have a relationship with somebody in Chile. The hardest thing for me this past year has been working with the Bolivians, because the Bolivians have a church body that is not, they're not in fellowship with us. And they have a few students in their congregation who have been confessionally minded. They believe, for instance, they believe in that Jesus instituted the ministry. And so they were encouraged to go to Argentina. And so they studied there for a little bit. These were the most advanced of all of our students, the Bolivians. They had taken most of the classes. And so I placed one Bolivian in Chile, a Bolivian in Belize, and poor Vladimir, I've spent quite a lot of time trying to place him first in the United States and then second in Mexico, and it just didn't work out. The visa process, Bolivia is not part of this Latin American association, which makes travel very easy.
Yeah.
So it was difficult enough getting those two Bolivian students to come to our seminary. And another one has recently been ordained. And these guys are really sharp guys, really good folks. But then besides that, the other vicarages, I really haven't done much work with them because they haven't gone out yet. That's what I'm going to be doing when I go back here this next week. I'm going to be starting up this.
So going like hard right turn, but same topic. What are you using to keep track of this?
My computer.
How? Is it in your email? Your email inbox is just that's all it is?
Yeah, and that's another thing.
That's brutal, man.
It's very brutal, and I'm learning a lot of things about myself. I'm learning that I need to take some kind of a crash course on how to organize my computer. I mean, I would say I'm producing 10 to 15 documents a day. And then I got to figure out, okay, and they're all on my desktops. Then I got to drag them over. And, in the emails, there must be the same amount of emails that I'm saving a day. So I have created some files. And, with the Google search engine, you can find your way through.
The search engines are a lifesaver.
Yeah.
But so you, oh man, this is interesting then. Yeah. For me, I don't know when, I think it was when I took the call to Naperville. So I went from being a sole pastor serving 50 people to being third pastor on the shoestring serving 800 people. And within 2 weeks, I realized my system can't do this, right? I gotta find another way. And right about that time, I think it was Wolfmiller threw me a book called Getting Things Done by David Allen.
Yes, by David Allen. I got that book too.
Okay.
You recommended it.
Have you read it?
I asked you like twice.
Have you read it? No.
Every pages, but he even says in the introduction, says this is not a book that you can just read.
It's true.
You can just read parts of it. So I have learned some tips from him. But thank you again for...
Well, finding a way to apply what he says in that book has not been easy because what he gives is sort of like a bird's eye view of there are 5 different steps to information management, 5 different parts of the process, right? So the first one's capture. You got to actually put it somewhere. Then once you capture it, you can't just leave it in a pile, otherwise you'll never look at it again, right? That's why you're talking about you got the desktop with the documents on it, and it becomes a pile, and now it's just you ignore it because it's just so big, so you got to move that somewhere else. But then once you've moved it somewhere, you got to be able to find it later as well. You don't want to forget, so you got to review, right? All that kind of stuff. But then you have that's just the theory, but then putting that into practice in terms of actually doing it is very, very challenging. And the more network you create, the more inboxes you have coming at you, which is what you're about to have just explode a little bit, the harder that gets. So I don't know, maybe I should ask you these questions in 3 years and find out. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite one is if you can do it in 5 minutes, do it. That's helped me.
Yeah. Right.
Just do it immediately.
Yeah.
And I do have a vicarage box and I have certain forms and I don't have that many people. The problem is just working in Latin America, the cultural thing, and talking on the phone is the best way. But understanding Spanish on the phone,
I bet it's
difficult.
much tougher. Yeah.
So I prefer we use WhatsApp. But I don't know why people in the States don't use this.
I've used it before for like youth group trips to keep track of kids. Like so you're out because WhatsApp is basically like a texting.
It's texting, but it's so much more efficient. You can put videos, you can put record voice messages.
And like kind of permanent groups as well,
Permanent groups, and exactly, you have all that. It's kind of like Facebook in that way, and it's a very, very convenient way to get a hold of people right away. In Latin America, you check your WhatsApp before you check anything else. Wow. It's the surest way, and really, the rest of the world uses WhatsApp. Our country's the
rest of the world
one.
Uses the metric system too, David.
That's true. That's true. Well, our country's great because we can just ignore people. Isn't that great?
It's going to come back and bite us, I think, eventually. But we have a lot to learn, and some of it is like any network is only as strong as the number of people on the network. So for me to start using WhatsApp, I got to get you to use WhatsApp, right?
Exactly.
And so you're coming into a place where it's already taken over. It's like this is why Facebook's not going to go away. People can boycott it, but like everybody's there.
It's not possible.
Yeah, everybody's there already.
Yeah.
So my hearing what you said about management, my single piece of advice to start with is get out of the email inbox. Separate that from organization. So if you've got to save an email, find a way to get that email into some other format. And that way email is only receive and send. And it's never, and the main reason is because you go in to find something that you're saving for over here and you see what came in and suddenly you're on processing mode. You're replying to emails for half an hour and you're like, oh crap, I came in here just to find this file, right?
Exactly.
So to do deep work, you got to get the email out of your regular rotation of seeing and to a place where you're only checking it at specific times. That's been huge for me.
That's great, yeah.
But I don't know, man. My desktop, I try never to put stuff there because it's just, I know it's going to sit there for a month and a half. And so trying to find a way to not do that and put it somewhere else. I just recently, I'm going to have to go away from I hope it doesn't destroy our recording here. A guy named Jonathan Mummy. Do you know Mummy?
Oh, yeah. Well, I know.
He's a professor at Concordia Mequon.
We've met.
He sent me an email. We're old friends. He sent me an email out of the blue asking what I used for data management, and then whether it was, he gave me 4 different things. I'd never heard of any of them. And I'm like, well, I used to use Evernote, and I hate it with a passion, so I'm going to try these other ones you just sent me. Thanks. And I found this one called Zotero. Zotero, Zotero. It's totally free. What I love about it is that it's a file system that you can create within an app on your. It's only on Mac, I think. I don't know, it might be on Windows as well. But it lets you create a file system like you would in Windows or in Finder. With file folders, but it's all in a tree format, so the file folders kind of go underneath each other.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you click on a document, you open and edit it without any other program. So it's, as soon as you touch the document, it's there for you to see it. You can edit it. You can go right out of it.
So do you have to have a touch screen then?
No, not at all. I can flip it around and show you here for the listeners. So here's some file folders. Let's see. Under my Getting Things Done file, I'm moving my Evernote stuff into this like this week. But Getting Things Done file folder under Great Finds, I have some clips that I've just put in. So this is an education clip. You can't see it right there. You'd have to click on it. It would open and play. Let's see if I can find a document, though.
Oh, this is great.
Review tools. So these are all notes under review tools. And if I click on Dreamlining, I could just go right in here and type with bold and italics and all that. Get something longer. There we go. This is this goes deeper here. In my Getting Things Done application, I do a quarterly review. So every 3 months, I try to spend time reviewing all my information so I don't lose anything, and then rethinking from the ground up. Am I focusing my time on what's most valuable right now? And so one of the tools I've used for that is this little writing tool called How to Say No from Tim Ferriss. So I still have to do this week sometime. I'll go through and I'll just answer all these questions, type them out as fast as I can, probably never look at it again, but it forces you to process information. But here that tool is, right, just sitting here as a document. I don't have to open Word. I don't have to have multiple, and I can just move between these documents as fast as I want.
So I can just have a document, I can have a file that's vicarage and just put everything, and of course vicarage is divided into,
you start with one file folder, vicarage, and you're going to find that as soon as you have 20 files in there, you're like, oh, that's too much to look at. But if you look at those, this is what the review's for in some part, you look at those files like, oh, well, 7 of these are about this and 10 are about this. And so you have 2 more file folders and you just kind of keep.
So basically anything that you put, because what we got a desktop, we have My Documents, we have then all the folders that you have on your desktop that then you access. It's such a mess.
Yeah, it can all go into this.
This is like all files.
Yeah,
but it's totally visible.
Yep.
Yeah.
I never use My Docs at all. At all. Nothing goes in there because it's too hard to go find stuff.
It's a drain.
Yeah, right. And so this allows you to take everything out of those other places, put it into one place, and then delete the old ones. Don't keep double copies of it, right? And you also can back it up, which is pretty cool because it's all saved ultimately in a file folder. So every quarter will external hard drive backup just in case something happens. I think you can pay with Zotero. I don't know about Zotero. With Evernote, you could pay to have it be in the cloud, so it would be on every device you were using. The reason I'm moving away from Evernote is it's a poorly run company. The actual software has gotten worse over years. They've removed features that were really valuable and ignore the users who are paying for it when they complain about it. So Zotero is open source, so it's a free download. I'm really happy with it so
Excellent.
far.
Well, thanks for that.
Yeah.
That's very helpful.
Just getting out of the inbox too, those right. So you don't that I can't express that enough. The inbox is a drain on time. It's not that you don't need to go in and see who's asking you for things, but every email is somebody else saying, I have a priority that should be your priority right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's very hard not to like let them then control what you do today. When instead you maybe have things you want to do today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you ignore it, if it falls back, and then all the junk mail on top of that, or not junk mail, but very, very low priority mail that pushes it back.
I can't tell you, the unsubscribe feature is something everyone should be using more often.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Because it still keeps coming. It's like, and my favorite is like MailChimp forces you to fill out like a little like, why are you unsubscribing? And it's always, I did not sign up for this. I did not sign up for this. Why am I getting this? So, okay. Well, do you want to respond? I mean, I just talked a lot about that.
No, that's really helpful. I'm really thrilled that I've been meaning to get my hands on software like this, something to make things easier. This is really helpful. Very good timing for me. On the administration organization, that is one thing that is probably the most difficult thing for me. Besides the language, which I'm doing well in language, I think. I'm told I'm doing well.
That's because they're being nice to you.
Of course, they're being nice to me. But I'm the meanest to myself, and so I'm very critical of myself. And I teach dogmatics, which is my area. So I use there's a lot of technical language. We were talking about that last night, and so the technical language comes easy. And so what I do is, not knowing language very well actually works to my advantage, because I'll try to unpack the technical terms, which I know they don't know, in very simple, baby Spanish, which I can speak pretty well, and it makes for a very enjoyable teaching experience. So, so Spanish is difficult, but the most difficult is this. What we're talking about here is the administration. I can do administration, but I've never done it before. It's like doing everything with your left hand. One missionary explained that to me.
You're a father of soon to be 8, so you have to administer a little bit. Hopefully you have a good wife who maybe is a little more anal retentive is the wrong word, but most good women are just a little more concerned about the dust in the corner than the guy is. So that helps.
But what's great about Jenny is, she certainly takes care of those details. But when you have a big family. When you have a big family, it's also nice. You can't be too anal retentive, because you go crazy. The kids will make you go crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, but you're right. These are vocations. And that's my primary vocation. I'm a husband. I'm a father, and I have to. I have no excuse. I have nobody to blame but myself if I don't make that my primary vocation.
Yeah.
But I'm a full-time parish pastor. I share a pulpit with somebody. We have a lot of operations going on.
Yeah.
Evangelism, visits, the regular preaching at least twice a week, not including seminary preaching.
You just add presidency of the Dominican Synod, and you'll be just like Walter. You got all of it going on.
Yeah, Walter with 2 nervous breakdowns.
Yeah,
right?
well, that's just it. And this is where, to me, this management stuff is so important.
Yes,
because it becomes this mental blockage, this pressure that builds, and you don't know it. Your neck might feel it sometimes, but you don't know it until it's too late, and it can really do physical damage to you as well, internal damage.
I think I'm shrinking.
That might be.
But anyway, we'll talk about that later.
You said, I can do administration. What was your experience? You went to Fort Wayne. I went to St. Louis. Mm-hmm. Did they teach you anything about order and structure and administration? We had some mediocre class called Pastor's Leader, and I think there was a pastoral theology. We might have gone over constitutions briefly.
Yeah, right.
But what was your experience here?
I think I took a class. Newford, didn't you teach us that class? I know he's in your listening audience.
Oh, really?
No, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But Newford taught us a class. I don't really remember it very well. I didn't have the best attitude in seminary. I mean, what kind of a seminarian's interested in that kind of stuff?
Well, that's true, but I think that's my frustration. Is that means we're teaching it wrong?
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I'm asking this question as a father too. Mm-hmm. Like, I've found all this stuff postgraduate, right? So I funneled my way through a bachelor degree and a pretend master's degree we call the MDiv, right? Without ever learning time management or information management. But I lived in a world before the internet.
Yeah, right.
Right? I'm looking at my 14-year-old kid and asking, how do I start teaching her this stuff?
Right.
In some way, at least to think these ways. How do I, she has an email account. Nothing goes in it except for what's from me and her mom and her grandma at this point. Here. But someday it's going to get bigger.
Yep.
How do you live with that? So somehow we have to find a way to teach this, which means it's important for the pastor, because a pastor who's unequipped for information, nothing against reading books. You sit there and read your book in the corner, but your inbox is going to be how you deal with your parish too.
No, you're right. I think that's important. I think the way you teach people organization is you need to teach people to be organized, individuals. Some people just have a knack for it. People who are have a tendency towards, people who go into engineering. And we have a lot of these folks who also go into the ministry. They have a knack for it. I think that people who do these things well are naturally well organized. Also take a greater interest in how the synod is governed and how these things work. I think they're just more naturally interested in it. I never was. I've always been, a reader. I've always been I've been the person who wants to create things and do a dreamer kind of a guy.
Right.
And so this has kind of become difficult for me. You know what I think? I honestly think in a seminary, speaking of seminary education, the way you teach people to organize, it's not just computer. I think we need to teach them to think dogmatically in an organized fashion.
Okay.
I think they need to learn to integrate the different subjects from a single theological core. They need to know what their exegetical classes and their historical classes and confessions classes have to do with the core of their study, which is they're learning to preach the gospel. They're learning to preach the forgiveness of sins to people, reach them and preach the gospel to them. And that's what the whole topical method was from the beginning. It was how to organize your knowledge of the scriptures. And I think that if you start from that basis, then you can move on to learn how the church is organized, how you fit into it.
Yeah,
what your
it's
gifts
funny.
are.
You sit here and you say you're an artist and an inspirer, and I get that too, and you are. But then you're a dogmatician, which is actually the most dusty, boring little.
Oh yeah, it's very analytical.
Yeah,
very.
yeah.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
So that tells me that productivity, you've just not been exposed to good teaching on productivity and management.
Right.
And I'm with you because we almost treat it like it's like this. I love the engineers, but the engineers are a special breed who do this in a special way.
Exactly.
And they don't necessarily give you the theory behind it. They're just so pragmatic. But the theory behind it makes so much sense. And when you start applying these things and you find yourself saving an hour a day and you have that time to go get inspired and create more junk that you have to
Smoke
deal with.
another cigar.
Or that. But when you find yourself having that impact, an hour a day, 5 hours a week, that's a lot of time.
Right.
In an age when everyone's so overbusied. So this is why I care about it. I'm going to quote again. I think I said this recently in another interview, so listeners, sorry if I repeat it. Brian Wolfmueller says it very well. I want to be able to do more good works.
Yeah, that's great.
Right? Well, part of that then means making sure I steward my time to do those good works.
Idleness is the playground of the devil.
Yeah.
And people are idle when they're working.
Yeah.
And when you're organized, and that's true. I think being organized is one of the most important things you can do. If you're not organized, get yourself organized. You're not losing time. You're not losing any time. If you learn that art, you're going to save time. But I think people don't get. They think, well, why haven't I read this David Allen book?
Yeah.
I'm speaking to myself here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to take. You have to do it. You're not going to like this. You need to take 3 days that you just read that book and do what it says for 3 straight days. Don't do anything else. But what it will do is it will save you weeks over the course of the next 10 years.
Very well.
Yeah, but that's hard. How do you carve out those 3 days? It's like telling a drowning man to swim better. It's.
Well, can I go to the beach, or is it better to stay in your house?
You go start at the beach. You're going to need to get yourself near paper at a certain point where you can write and start moving paper around. You could do some of it on the computer too, but I'm moving. It's a whole other topic. I'm moving more and more to analog. You can see this is all my.
So you're using more paper.
Yeah, the Zotero thing. That's just reference files. That's stuff hitting this. That's stuff I'm not that I would work on documents. But in terms of the project management, it's all analog.
Okay.
And we could talk about that another time.
Yeah.
But, I want to ask. We have kind of 2 segments left here, and we're running out of time to get to the last one. So I want to move toward. Well, how on earth do you build an international organization then? I know you're not the one ultimately in charge of that. Is Cray the one doing that? Is Fritchie the one doing that? Who's
Ted Cray's this is his brainchild. He's the guy behind it. But of course, he didn't do it alone. He did it with various circumstances that were already in place. I mentioned Argentina was a seminary, and also depending on the Fort Wayne Seminary, and
but you guys just imported. So, because maybe where we could go with this, you said you imported from Fort Wayne their administrative structure.
Somewhat. They helped us develop our curriculum.
Okay, so curriculum, but that's different. That's different.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there are a lot of details there, and they're not going to come to mind. I'm sorry.
That's right.
But one thing I'll say is, Ted Cray, he's known as an idea guy. He has ideas. And I remember when we were going through this process, we had a meeting. President Rast was down there, and Dr. Just was down there, and we were just talking about the Argentinians and all of us, the faculty, were all in a meeting. And I remember going out of that meeting, there were so many items on the table. I remember going out thinking, this is insane. There's no way we're going to do this. And we did it. It's not the prettiest thing. That's what we need to learn about missions. If you read the history of missions, it's not glorious. It is ugly. And the beginning of a seminary too, we were kind to each other and everything, but you would never have imagined. It really does take imagination, perseverance. You just got to do it. And we got the visas too. People were getting visas for students to arrive, finding apartments, who had no experience in this. So everybody was working outside of their area. And one missionary explained it well. It's like doing James Neuendorf, I think, put it this way. It's like when you get to the mission field and you're working, it's like you're doing everything with your left hand. If you're right-handed,
and you got to learn to do it all.
You're not comfortable with anything you're doing, and you're not doing anything well. And I think that's the key. Now, we need to aspire to do things well, but we're not doing things as well as we would like.
The perfect is the enemy of the good.
Absolutely.
Got to let little bad things happen so you can do great big good things.
Right on.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. Don't get me the wrong way.
You're a heretic.
You got me. Well, I'm sure a few incorrect statements, come out because of the bad Spanish.
I jest, but I think it's important to say what you're talking about is not theology. You're not talking about how, we got to let some false teaching be there. Right. You're talking about on the ground, in the dirt, how do we do this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of time, but it's also really personal because you wrestle with students. I'm never satisfied leaving the classroom. I focus on the classroom more because that's where most of my work is. I'm never satisfied leaving the classroom if I am not sure that all of my students have grasped the material. I need them to grasp it. We have this precious little time with these people, and I don't want to just send them out with a half-baked. And it's not a large amount of material, but it's the core. What is conversion? What is it? What is the difference between conversion and justification? Things like that.
Yeah. I'm going to transition now here again. These are some, in theory, quick-fire questions. Everybody gets them, so they're not specific to you. And 2 to 3 sentences. Maybe we'll talk more, maybe we won't. But don't feel too much pressure on it. How do you measure success at the end of your day?
Boy, that's a hard one.
Well, for a failure, it would be. Just kidding.
I could. That's great. I could give you a really pious answer.
What? No. Top your head. What do you think?
So I tell my wife, I've been successful if I've been honest, and if I've fulfilled my vocation to the best of my ability.
When you say that, fulfill my vocation, what do you mean?
I've been a good husband. I've been a good father. I don't care how successful you are, how popular you are, how much of the world you've seen, how many people you have under your influence, and how many things you've accomplished outside of the home. If you're a crappy dad, you failed.
Yeah.
You need to be a good husband, and you need to be a good father to your children. Not so that they remember you as a good father, as much as so that they become good, so that they're Christians and that they love virtue and that they love the gospel.
That makes me. I want to ask. This is not the next question, but you make me want to ask it. Do you feel like a crappy dad?
Oh, sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, absolutely, because I'm busy, and being busy is not a virtue either.
No. No, in fact, it's a form of laziness, honestly.
I totally agree with you. And that's why I like it. I'm glad we had this conversation about organization. That's really helpful. I came on the show, so I thought, oh, he's going to ask me all these difficult questions. Actually, I came and I had it was like a workshop. Thank you.
Good.
But no, I'm definitely going to keep pursue that. But yeah, of course I do. Of course I feel that I failed as a father. But at the same time, I think we need to apply the gospel to ourselves more often. We need to. Our mental health depends on it. We need to think in terms of being reconciled to God and knowing that God's given you something to do. He's forgiven you, and He's prepared the good works for you to walk in. So go walk in them every day anew, and also live in forgiveness. If you have neglected your wife or children, apologize to them.
Right.
They're Christians. They're your brothers, and they're not just your kids, your project or your wife that you need to manage. They're your brothers and sisters, and to live with them in faith and true faith and love is there's no greater pleasure.
I ask because I take my vocation very seriously, and yet I'm human, and so I'm constantly less, and I'm a perfectionist, so I'm constantly less than I ought to be.
Yeah.
And it wears on me because there is no greater fear I have than my children abandoning the faith. Yeah. And there's no greater desire I have than they would know me as the one God gives to forgive them. Right. That's my job. And so, but it's tough because you want to do the right, and yet you find yourself not. And so, yeah, being under grace is so huge. All right. So back to quick fires. That wasn't very quick, was it?
No.
What is something you believe that most Lutherans do not believe?
Something I believe that most Lutherans do not believe?
Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to be theology. It can mean anything. Tinfoil hat if you want.
Tinfoil hat. I believe, I mean, this may sound kind of dumb. This is cheap. I'm not going to do it. Okay, I'll just do it. I don't mind controversy. I think you should face the altar when you for the invocation, when you cross yourself. This is
interesting.
This is a sacrificial. You are not acting as this. The people of the church do not come to you, Papa Pastor, for the forgiveness of sins. So come to me, all you who labor and then you put the sign of the cross on them, and you put the name of God on them. No, this is kind of I think it's an innovation. I think instead he's fulfilling a priestly act where he is invoking the name. It's an invocation. He's invoking the name of God on behalf of the people who are gathered here, and it's only after they confess their sins that he turns and acts in that sacramental way.
Interesting.
I just think that we should retain that practice. And why did I mention that?
I don't know. You're calling me out though, because I'm on the other side.
I know.
Man.
I did it for years. And all the liturgical opinions I have, I used to break them. I used to break all of them. And I also turn around now for the Lord's Supper. I don't face the altar. I face the congregation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Even with an altar, like without a freestanding altar, because I believe that's proclamation.
I'm with you on that.
And I think that we need to just be conscious, because we have all these liturgical battles, and I'm not interested in. I'm not a liturgiologist. I really am not. But I do think
liturgista.
Liturgista. That's liturgista. I think that's whatever. I just have a few opinions about the liturgy. Or it should be orderly. It shouldn't be innovative, because if it's innovative, you're distracting. Period. It's such a simple concept, and it serves nobody but yourself. So we should be traditional, we should be conservative, and we should also maintain the whole sacramental, sacrificial kind of distinction. I think it's simple. I think any Joe Schmo pastor like myself can remember it. But anyway.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I'm going to throw you my opinion, and then we'll go on. The reason I face the people is not because they're coming to me, it's because I'm coming to them. Mm-hmm. So it's, in my mind, this is the apostolic sent one. I'm here in this name. Mm-hmm. And if I don't say stuff in this name from here on, you throw stones at me, right? Like I'm declaring to you that's why I'm here with you. Now, that might be an innovation. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And certainly I grew up just seeing people face me, and so that's just what I did. And so I've used my theology to find a good explanation for it.
Right.
I worry about the sacrificial side too, but we should chase that another time. We have a lot of time. I love it though. This is why I asked the question, is I want to be challenged.
Absolutely.
What book have you reread the most that's not the Bible or the Confessions?
What book have I reread? Oh, wow. Go Dog Go.
That's a great answer.
And I recommend that book.
Yeah, sure.
It is such a good book. It's like the only book that's not Dr. Seuss. I don't think it's Dr. Seuss.
No, I don't think it is.
No, but it's so good. And what I like about it is so refreshingly honest. Can I go on?
Yeah. That's wonderful.
I love the part where this lady keeps coming up and just appears at various parts of the book, and she has a different hat on each time. She comes out of nowhere. She is not, part of the plot at all. But she comes and she says, "Do you like my hat?" And the man just straight up, honestly, says to her, "No, I do not like your hat." And then it's not until the very end where she comes with some, I don't know if it's a normal hat or a ridiculous hat because she keeps outdoing herself. And he's like, "Yes, I love your hat." But I don't know. It's such a great, it teaches you honesty.
That's
and
great.
it's about dogs and going.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's a great answer, David. Thank you. That makes me smile. Who is your favorite fictional antagonist?
Fictional antagonist.
Doesn't have to be literature. It can be movie or whatever.
El Guapo.
Oh, nice. Yes. Go ahead and give the reference.
El
Most
Guapo
people
from-
won't know.
From Three Amigos.
Yes.
He's the greatest antagonist of all time. And
If you know the word plethora, it's because El Guapo used it. Whether you know it or not, he put it in American culture.
it's so fun learning Spanish after I grew up on Three Amigos.
Yeah,
And then
right.
learning Spanish later because you like what these names mean. Like El Guapo means the handsome one.
Yeah.
Anyway, he is great. I recommend Three Amigos.
Yeah, it's a
Absolutely.
hilarious movie. My wife and I are still planning to watch. In fact, the microbrewery in town has a movie series in the spring once a month where they're showing a movie and you come and drink beer and watch the movie. And Three Amigos is in April. So I sent it to my wife and I texted Andrew too. I'm like, "Andrew, look what's in my town." Just to give him a hard time. So the Preus brothers all love that movie. And one of my favorite memories in life was sitting in a smoke-filled garage quoting that line with all the Preus brothers. And we were all in tears. Do you remember that? We were in tears, man.
Probably was
It was
there.
so good. All right. What is the best tool you have for your day-to-day life? This might be a bad question. No one's really liked it so far, but like something you use every day that you're particular to. You couldn't live without this thing.
I hate to admit it, but probably my phone.
iPhone or Android?
Yeah, it's an iPhone.
iPhone.
And the reason is because I use this to communicate with people and everybody, close, far. I do most of my administrative work through here because it's contacting people and of course telephone calls, everything like that. But of course, I would say really more than that, my computer, because I use my computer to write and prepare classes and things. And
You use a Mac as well as your computer?
I use a Mac, yeah.
I'm mad at Apple, but I am an Apple person. But I love my phone as an extension of my computer, and the way that they kind of engage each other is really very
Absolutely. useful.
That's what I think they have over Android still, at least in my world. Android, Google, Windows, etc. Anyway. What does the first 60 minutes of your day look like, or what's on autopilot? And I'm not looking necessarily for. I'm looking for the nitty gritty. Like you get up and what happens?
First 60 minutes are coffee, and I talk with my wife. That's my time with my wife.
Okay.
And we talk before the kids get up, and that's kind of that's our quiet time.
What time is it?
Well, let's see.
My kids get up pretty early. That's why I'm asking.
Well, our kids don't, so it's maybe 6:30.
Okay. Yeah.
6:30, I'd say. I don't know, Jenny. Maybe Jenny will listen to this. I'll tell her to later. Well, yeah.
Are you lying in bed or are you at the table with the coffee?
We're in the living room.
Yeah.
We're relaxing
Yeah.
with the coffee. Yeah, and we got a full pot. I drink way too much of it, and yeah.
Yeah, I hear that. I love me some coffee. In fact, I think about this question, most important tool, and I'm like, I'll say pen. My pen's so important. Maybe my coffee pot is the most important tool in my life.
That's right.
This might be too easy. I don't know. Or what dusty corner of theology are you currently obsessed with? So you can say law gospel if you want, like everyone, but
Yeah, but please don't. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. What are you finding that's ours that we need to find again?
I'm very interested in there's been a lot of debate on the atonement.
Okay. Yeah.
And, I think I'm with just about everybody on that, where it's just kind of a current interest. But I think specifically, I'm kind of a deep. I like to think things deeply. That's why I don't write as much. I write a lot, but I don't produce. I don't publish. But I do intend to publish here soon. But the intersection, and not even the intersection, but the Trinitarian nature of the atonement, and justification. Just this, we call justification the central article, and it is. And why? I'd like to explore that more. I'm also interested in the sinner-saint distinction. This is not a contradiction in God. There is no contradiction in God. It's a contradiction in us. And meanwhile, I also want to, there's been a lot of debate about antinomianism. All this stuff is related. I would like to bring a resolution to it because I don't think we disagree. I don't think we have to disagree on this. I think this is an example of, to make an analogy, people with too much money they invent problems.
It's a first world problem.
It's a first world problem, as people say. And I honestly think that we're having that problem in the Missouri Synod, especially among confessional brothers. It is intolerable that we should disagree on this issue. It is very simple to understand.
There's a lot of ego at work in this thing.
Absolutely. You know what we used to do? We used to make distinctions, but that's back when we really cared about coming to an agreement, a consensus. And I'm afraid that people don't want to. I'm terrified that people, because this speaks to their souls, the condition of their spiritual condition. And I'm convinced that people do not want to come to an agreement. They'd rather mock, laugh, nurture grudges, and they don't want to actually come to that beautiful consensus because doctrine unites. We have to repent before we do it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Concordia,
absolutely,
that beautiful
and
harmony.
reconciliation. How could anybody possibly say reconciliation's impossible? No Christian can say that.
No,
it's not possible for a
has
Christian
to be the
believe
goal.
something like that.
It has to be the goal.
Absolutely.
If you could lead a 2-week boot camp for young men the summer before college, what would it look like?
A 2-week boot camp. Oh, man. You know what it would be? I'm really interested in, what age group?
The summer before college. High school senior boys, graduate, going to college. You got to prep them. You got 2 weeks.
No, I got to back up. The summer before college. Man, my son's 15. He's going to be there soon. I should probably have an opinion here, huh? Or an idea.
It's actually something I want to do someday.
Yeah?
I want to start one.
I mean, I would, you know what I get him to do? I get him to learn to talk to each other, learn the art of conversation, because kids that age don't know how to talk, and learn to talk to adults. I have a theory. I think if a kid can talk to an adult, he's got something.
Yeah.
And I like that, and I don't mean being disrespectful, because sometimes kids are disrespectful. They're disrespectful to anybody and everything. They make no distinctions. That, I think, the kid has a problem. But if someone can actually look at an adult in the eye, that's good. And also have conversations with each other that's not just butt humor.
Yeah.
Boys talking about butts and farts.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. No, if you can learn before you go to college. This pains me to say this, because for crying out loud, we used to not have youth and teenagers and stuff. This is a brand new thing.
Right.
You should learn to be a man. Girls should learn to be women, and boys should learn to be men, and they should learn before they get to college to do that. So otherwise, college is a waste.
Yeah.
And I think conversation is the main thing.
Yeah, conversation. I like that. It's a good answer. What is the most important failure in your life? And I mean this is like the one that was best for you, or you learned the most from. You're thankful for this failure. Okay.
So failure that I'm thankful for. I guess I don't know. Now I'm drawing a blank. I think I've had in the past. I think sometimes I've kind of had a bad attitude, and I've learned to have. I've learned a lot of patience. I used to pray for patience, and I've learned to have a better attitude, because having a bad attitude, being sad, being gloomy, helps nobody. It doesn't help yourself or anybody. And so I think I've learned to be a little bit kinder. Just from learning from my past. I don't know.
Any specifics on that? Was there a time when your moodiness really did some damage, and it struck
I used to do
you?
it to my family all the time. Nobody wants a person, because I'm a very deep thinker. And so nobody wants a person just living in their own world.
Right.
You can say, well, I'm in my own world. I'm not bothering you. You're not in it. But I'm not in yours either. So we're good.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing anything to you. Well, you are. People want you. I do still kind of struggle with this sometimes. People want you to be cheerful, engaging. They want you to recognize them. They want you to be nice, even if it's shallow, small talk, and you have to talk about things that are not important. Because I'm such a deep thinker, I have important things to think about, right? And then I get, well, maybe I should be thinking about the people around me.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that. That is something. It makes it more of a long-term thing. I've done it enough.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that.
You mentioned vocation earlier. I mean, to me, the definition of vocation is who's in front of you right now.
Yeah.
And how do you relate to them? That's really good. What's your favorite Bible verse, if you got one?
My favorite Bible verse. Oh, boy. So many of them.
I know. It's tough. If you can't answer. It's a prelude to another question that I have to get that one out of the way.
I like all those. No. Well, my favorite Bible verse is probably Philippians chapter 2, verses 8 to 10. That let this mind be in you, which is also in Christ Jesus.
Yeah. Did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped. Made himself nothing, taken on the form of a servant, death on a cross, all that.
All that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's beautiful, and it teaches the faith. Any Bible passage that is in itself a creed. Yeah.
That's good. It's a good answer. You caught me too. You say the verse, I have no idea. You start saying what the verse says.
Of course,
I can quote it.
Of course you can quote it. In other words,
It's pathetic though. It's so pathetic.
Yeah, what's
the
reference?
Baptists know where it is. It kills me.
Yeah,
What is your favorite non-Bible quote, if you have one?
Favorite non-Bible quote? Boy. I mean, I don't know. So many of them. No. Probably a portion of a Rudyard Kipling poem or something like that, if I think of anything off the top of my head.
One of my other favorite memories is one of your brothers doing a dramatic presentation of
a Kipling poem.
The Female of the Species by
probably,
Kipling over beers and cigars at a campfire.
Probably be Mark.
Yes, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I went and bought a Kipling book afterwards.
It's so great. It's a
really good poem.
But it's not even. I mean, I shouldn't do Kipling. That's just. There are plenty more, but I can't think of any. I'm sorry, John.
That's all right. It's good. Not everyone walks around memorizing quotes, but what major idea have you changed? You've already kind of said this a little bit. What major idea have you changed your mind about in the last 2 years, and why?
Major idea that I changed my mind about. I don't know. What kind of ideas did I have?
Well, you mentioned liturgy stuff earlier, so you already kind of answered it a little bit there.
Yeah. I think I think I've learned things about myself. I think that where I'm almost 40. I turned 40 in February, and I've been thinking a lot lately about things. I didn't make a New Year's resolution, or not that I ever really do, but things that in the last 40 years that define me, that make me, tendencies that I have, things that I probably won't ever change, and things that I probably ought to change. And so I think just I'm less of a dreamer. That seems more gradual, not 2 years, but really over the past 2 years I've become less of a dreamer. I've become more of a realist. I've gotten to know myself, and I know what my abilities are and where they aren't. I know where to find the abilities that I would like, but they're not in my person; they're in another.
Yeah.
And to appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it's not really idea; it's more of a tendency change.
No, but that's really good. That's a theory. It's recognizing that you can't build on your weaknesses; you build on your strengths, and you find other people who are strong where you're weak. That's a really huge insight.
Yeah, and to nurture friendships is so important. I've learned so many things on the mission field. I can't even. There's many.
They take friendship to a different level down there. Yeah. They really do. And my experience with them. Hey, Tim. My experience with them. I spent some time in Guatemala briefly, and they care about you in ways that we don't have it as a culture,
right?
At all.
Yeah.
Last one. What's the most important? Well, this is probably not even. I shouldn't end with this one. What is the most important first article truth you see people ignoring today? Can be Christians, non-Christians, doesn't matter. People need to know this.
I used to say children, and I do believe that, obviously, but I think marriage.
Okay.
It's just people don't believe in it. They don't believe in marriage. And it's just terrible. I think people don't get married. They're afraid of marriage. They're all into, if they're Christians. I read an article. Maybe you read that article about chastity. The whole thing about people are all into chastity. They make their chastity promises and they don't get married until they're 30.
It's crazy.
Well, no wonder they suffer so much under this burden of sexual temptation, and they don't get married. Why don't you just get married? Why don't people get married when they're ready to get married? When a woman is most fertile, and then why don't they have children? Why? Do you honestly, but I'm talking to everybody here. You honestly think that if you bring a child into this world, or rather, if God brings a child into this world using you, that he won't provide for that child, that he won't provide for you? Why would God give you the greater gift, one gift, and then deny you the other?
Right.
Why don't we think more in terms of God who gives us these things and thank him for it? And then not talk about the cross all the time. Oh, bearing the cross. Marriage isn't a cross. My dad wrote a paper. I think it's great.
It is for my wife.
Well, it isn't for me.
And if I had a dime every time a Preus told me my dad wrote a paper, I'd be a wealthy man.
I know. We should be really. People need to start reading my dad's papers. I read them all the time. It's a lot of my diet. You know? I learned like all my theology from him, and the rest is just form. No, I've learned from my professors and everybody too. But no, but I agree. And by the way, a lot of these papers they begin with conversations that just are our conversation. You know?
Yeah.
But people whine all the time about the cross, and I wonder about that. They just put themselves in a victim position, which then puts another person into an oppressor position. And you know what? People do that. Yeah, it's true.
It's Hegel, it's Nietzsche, it's snowflake land, and even conservatives were part of that culture. It's lack of grit. There's so much there. I want to chase that, but we can't.
I know.
David Preus, professor of, now I had it written down, I don't have it. Your dogmatics, I remember that part, was the other. No, history. We didn't even talk about history. That's so cool. Professor of dogmatics and history at the Centro de Misericordia y Seminario de Concordia el Reformador. That wasn't too bad, was it?
Not so bad.
How much American accent I had in there. Thank you so much for doing this with me, and maybe our cross will path. Our paths will cross again, and we can follow grit and history for another conversation.
I certainly hope so. I enjoyed talking with you, Jonathan.
Awesome,
Thanks
David.
so much for having me.
Thank you.
Was that worth $1? What about $5? Project Resurrection is made possible by listeners like you and your patronage of my husband's work. Click the Patreon link in the show notes to sign up. Pretty please?